You buy a top-tier graphics card, boot up a game on Ultra, and step into the action. But instantly, the game freezes and stutters. Modern graphics menus are packed with acronyms and sliders. It is tempting to just toggle every new feature on and hope for the best. But pushing every slider to the right does not give you the ultimate gaming experience. It usually creates a bloated, unresponsive mess. Look at this 3D triangle representing the 3 pillars of PC gaming: visual fidelity, frame rate, and latency. With limited GPU power, stretching the top corner to maximize visual beauty steals resources from the others. That is exactly why your FPS drops and lag spikes. Optimizing your GPU is not about flexing raw computing power. It is about deciding exactly which corner of this triangle you are willing to sacrifice to match the way you play. Let's start with the heaviest graphics setting available today: ray tracing. Instead of painting fake shadows, the GPU simulates a physical light beam bouncing off a shape and hitting the camera lens in real time. Multiply that math across thousands of light sources at once. The GPU calculates all those chaotic intersections instantly, which heavily taxes your system and tanks your performance. Paying this massive performance cost makes sense in very specific environments. If you are walking down a street filled with neon signs, wet puddles, and glass windows, the realistic reflections are striking. But if your game takes place in an open, sunlit grassland with no reflective surfaces, the visual difference is barely noticeable, yet your GPU is still draining power to calculate it. Then there is path tracing. This takes the exact same concept but calculates lighting for the entire scene, not just isolated reflective surfaces. The result looks incredibly close to real life, but the hit to your frame rate is far more severe. Advanced lighting is a heavy luxury tax. You should only turn it on if the game's environment actually features the reflective materials necessary to justify the massive drop in frame rate. To counter the massive toll of these advanced lighting systems, the industry relies on AI upscaling technologies, like NVIDIA's DLSS and AMD's FSR. Instead of forcing the GPU to render a 4K image, it renders a much smaller, low-resolution grid to save power. Then, an AI sweeps across the image, guessing and filling in the missing pixels to stretch it back to a high resolution. Your frame rate shoots up, but AI reconstruction is imperfect. You will occasionally notice minor blurriness, flickering, or trailing ghost copies behind moving objects. If you want to avoid AI artifacts entirely, you can use dynamic resolution. This traditional alternative automatically drops your game's resolution during chaotic moments, like massive explosions, to keep your frame rate stable, trading temporary sharpness for consistent performance. Another modern tool is frame generation. The AI looks at 2 real frames rendered by the GPU, predicts what should happen between them, and slides an artificial frame directly into the gap. The motion looks incredibly smooth on screen, but there is a hidden cost. To predict that middle frame, the system must pause and hold on to the real frame slightly longer. This introduces noticeable input lag between clicking your mouse and seeing the action happen. If you are playing a fast-paced multiplayer shooter, that extra delay can get you killed. But in a slow-paced cinematic adventure game, you likely won't feel it at all. Upscaling and frame generation deliver huge frame rate numbers on paper. But to get those numbers, you are actively trading away pure visual clarity and instant responsiveness. You can also run into screen tearing. When your GPU produces frames at a speed completely desynchronized from your monitor's physical refresh rate, the monitor shows parts of 2 different frames at once, creating a split image. The traditional fix is VSync. It forces the GPU to wait for the monitor, which fixes the tear. But making the hardware wait creates sluggish input lag for your controls. Modern monitors solve this with hardware sync, like G-Sync or FreeSync. These allow the monitor to dynamically adjust its speed to match the GPU, eliminating tearing without slowing down inputs. For overall graphical clarity, you'll want anti-aliasing turned on. Games are built from square pixels, making curved objects look jagged. Anti-aliasing smooths those harsh edges. Then there is texture quality. This dictates the detail of the images wrapped around 3D objects, like the complex weaving on a character's shirt. Storing those highly detailed images requires massive amounts of your GPU's video memory, or VRAM. Setting textures to medium or high gives you a sharp, realistic pattern, but pushing that setting to Ultra drains huge amounts of precious VRAM for a microscopic increase in detail that your eyes will never notice during actual gameplay. Upgrading to a sync-compatible monitor and deliberately keeping your textures on high keeps your VRAM clear. This prevents the hardware bottlenecks that ruin an otherwise perfect frame rate. The perfect graphics setup does not exist in a vacuum. It has to be built entirely around whether you are trying to win a competitive match or get lost in a cinematic story. Look at this scorecard. For the competitive protocol, pure reaction time dictates success, so you turn off frame generation, ray tracing, and VSync. This guarantees zero input lag, relying on native resolution and anti-aliasing for clean, instant visual feedback. On the other side is the cinematic protocol. Immersion is the priority here, so you turn on DLSS, frame generation, and ray tracing. You dial textures back to high, saving critical VRAM to keep the dense environments running smoothly. Stop letting marketing buzzwords dictate how you configure your hardware. Understand the trade-offs, take control of your settings, and deliberately curate your GPU's power to serve the exact experience you want to have.